Hello, everybody. I'm Adam Ginsberg here with David Somore, and we're here for another installation of Third World Airports, and we're happy to be with you guys here tonight. We're going to be talking today about both the Donald Trump's accusations of the Obama White House wiretapping him, and we will be talking about his new and revised executive order about refugees. Dave?
All right, so let's talk about the alleged wiretappings. So, when I first just Googled this in general, I looked at CNN mainly, NBC, and the vibe I got was this is
That's fake
complete
news.
this is complete nonsense, as in Trump's allegations. Because the first thing one of the articles was talking about how FBI Director James Comey asked the Justice Department this weekend to publicly reject President Trump's assertion that President Barack Obama ordered the tapping. And then I was thinking in my head, in this case, why was no information about this leaked in 2016 or talked about in 2016, and why is it coming up now? And then I also said, to me, it doesn't make sense, and in my opinion, I think Donald Trump is trying to change the narrative. It still may be the case, but then I dug a little bit deeper, and there's this very conservative political commentator named Mark Levin, who brings up um, these two FISA requests in court by the Obama administration. One to look into Trump's ties with Russia in some bank, and then another one in October that I think also had to do with Russia. I'm not fully sure, but it looks like there's more to this than we actually think, and I don't know exactly everything that's happening with this, but it seems to me that it's not a matter of whether the Obama administration spied or was involved in the Trump campaign. It's just to what extent. So I think you have more specifics, Adam, and go ahead and say what you think about all this.
All right, first of all, so I'm just looking at Donald Trump's tweet, and his tweet was terrible. Just found out that Obama had my, quote, wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism. Now, I want to make clear here because at first when I looked at this, I had the same impressions as you in that he's trying to change the narrative, which I still, to a large extent, do believe um, that he's trying to change the narrative. But the fact that he's pinning this on, Obama and in and of himself calling him a bad or sick guy, when in fact it was the Justice Department who, if there was any FISA requests, made them. It's not the sitting president who can even make a FISA request. First of all, that's disingenuous because that throws shade on our former president, and what it does is it creates more divisions, and in effect is extremely misleading. Now, secondly, there's the whole fact of the veracity of all this information. And what's extremely interesting here is that the reports that Trump cites and that the White House cites are from Heat Street, which is an extremely conservative outlet, and Breitbart and the Guardian. They all cited each other, so it's a circular citation almost. And honestly,
But they
what
cited the Guardian. Is that true?
that's true, yes.
Okay, and that's
Well,
one of the most liberal
right.
news sources out
But,
there.
but what I do want to say is this: I think, and whether I look, I agree that this claim should be investigated, just like, and I've been maintaining this the entire time, just like Trump's ties with Russia should be investigated. 100% agree with that because I believe in transparency. I want the air to be clear. I don't want there to be any political scandals uh, being held over our heads. But I think it's incredibly irresponsible for the president to make a claim like this on Twitter, not backing it up with any initial evidence, basically causing mass panic. And when in fact, if he may have uncovered some sort of Watergate-like scandal, providing evidence which from four citations which basically all referenced each other. Which, to be completely honest with you, if you were referencing this in a school paper, the teacher would give you a side eye and say, "Look, like these are not these are not all trusted outlets, and they're not all independent outlets because they all relied on each other for this story.
Well,
So I think that if Donald Trump is going to come out and make this claim, it needs to be with full knowledge of the situation, not just
all
circumstantial knowledge.
right, but that's not how Donald Trump rolls.
Okay,
And I
but
think that this is
that's
actually, I don't think it's that bad that okay, so what he tweeted was terrible. Just found out that Obama had my wires tapped. Trump in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism. Okay. Now, was that overblown? We don't know yet. Perhaps it was. Um, but I think it's a good thing because what Trump is doing is once again playing with the media, and now
why is that a good
it
thing?
forces conservatives like Mark Levin are pointing out um, New York Times articles, Washington Post articles, and he had 7 points he used, all using um, left-leaning articles to prove his point. And now, what the liberals tried to do, or the left media tried to do, is dismiss it right away and say, "Oh, this is nonsense. This is nonsense." And then it brings to light the fact that there are two requests by the Obama administration to to the FISA courts to um,
Who confirmed
find
that?
things on Trump.
Dave,
What?
Dave, who confirmed that?
The sources that leak stuff about Trump and Russia all the time. Because Levin used the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Guardian, um, and one more source that's extremely left. I don't know if I can find it right now, but he that's all he used. And these are the people that get the leaks from the government all the time. And that's what Trump is complaining about. And these are the same people who are claiming that the leaks they have about Russia are true. So how can you say that the leaks they have or that they talk about or the things that they talk about with the FISA requests and the Obama administration suddenly isn't true because it might bring out terrible news about the Obama administration.
You say, how can I say that? I'm not saying that. I literally just said that they should do an investigation of both. But it's funny you say that.
But you don't believe my claim when I say that there was two requests to the FISA courts about Trump.
I asked you where your sources are on that because
My sources are from the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the
I've been looking on
Guardian.
the web, and it says that there's again anonymous sources who have confirmed this, which I find interesting and pretty hypocritical from the right, considering that they try to shoot down all stories about Russia that come from anonymous sources, and then are suddenly believing that anonymous sources are now gonna be able to deliver this FISA story to them. Which I'm not saying I don't believe it, but come on, that there's definitely hypocrisy
But
there.
then there's
And then,
hypocrisy in the left if they're going to try to shut down the anonymous sources that bring bad things out about the Obama administration.
no one's shutting down the anonymous sources.
No, because
They're just
they're
questioning.
delegitimizing it from the start. They're saying that this is
They're just
nonsense.
questioning. All right, this is what happens. Donald Trump. There's a huge uproar over Jeff Sessions' connection to Russia. He recuses himself from an investigation. The next morning, Trump, out of his back pocket, ace up his sleeve, tweets out about this Obama wiretapping scandal, which, by the way, in the midst of all this tweeting, he somehow took the time, 30 minutes after his first tweet, to somehow tweet about Arnold Schwarzenegger getting bad ratings and getting fired by his ratings because, he has a great attention span, but that's besides the point. Then he goes on to the White House goes on to cite, they cited a Guardian article, they cited an opinion column in the Conservative National Review dated January 11th that questioned if FIFA was being used for political enemies. They cited a New York Times story that which ran on January 12th that um, said that the NSA is now sharing globally intercepted personal communications with all of the government's intelligence agencies, which, by the way, has nothing to do with wiretapping of Trump Tower, just to do with globally intercepted personal communications.
Okay.
And this is probably one of the only source that's real that it's cited that's really, I think, verifiable, or at least real, in the fact they cited a New York Times story from January 19th that wrote about how law enforcement and intelligence agencies
Okay.
are intercepted communications and financial transactions
So
as a part of broad investigation into
okay.
possible
So here's
Russian
let me just lay out
officials
what Levin laid out.
and associates
His
of
first thing
President
was
Donald
June
Trump.
2016. There's a FISA request. The Obama administration files a request with the Foreign Intelligence Service Surveillance Court to monitor communications involving Donald Trump and several advisors. The request is denied.
That's from I'm just that's from the anonymous sources who've leaked it out of the government.
This is coming from the New York Times article. I don't know actually if this is from the New York. This is not from the New York Times article. This is the thing that came from the Heat Street thing supposedly. So
All
I'm
right,
still looking into it.
so
Okay.
something.
Then his
All right,
second thing is the Russia joke. WikiLeaks releases emails from the Democratic National Committee that show an effort to prevent Senator Bernie Sanders from winning the presidential nomination. In a
I'm trying.
press conference, Donald Trump refers to Hillary Clinton's own missing emails, joking, "Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails." That remark becomes the basis of the accusations by Clinton and the media that Trump invited further hacking.
Okay,
And
and
then the third point,
so how is that any sort of
it builds up to the point.
okay?
Podesta emails in October. WikiLeaks releases the emails of Clinton campaign chair John Podesta rolling out batches every day until the election, creating new mini scandals. The Clinton campaign blames Trump and the Russians. That's how this whole narrative comes out. Then October is the second FISA request. The Obama administration submits a new narrow request to the FISA court, now focused on a computer server in Trump Tower, suspected to links to Russian banks. No evidence is found, but they claim the wiretaps continue. Attention, um, okay. Then they say that the Obama administration is now monitoring an opposing presidential campaign.
Okay,
So,
okay.
to an extent, that is true in the sense that they submit a new narrow request to the FISA court, now focused on a computer server in Trump Tower. So there was to an extent wiretapping,
All right,
or
so
to some extent spying.
let's just take a step back and take a broad perspective on this whole situation. Okay, we have an election where one of the presidential candidates cozies up to Russia and Vladimir Putin, and as you said, and as was interpreted by many, invited the hacking of his opponent. Um, then and had hired a campaign advisor who had very close ties to Russia. Then fired him. Dealt with a businessman, Carter Page, who basically spouts the Kremlin's party line, and had various connect and hired Rex Tillerson, who had very close to Russia. So basically, Trump was involved with numerous people who were very close to Russia, and he himself um, cozied up to Vladimir Putin. So basically, what we are talking about here, and I don't, what we're missing in this whole story is the fact that he still needed to be investigated for his ties to the Russians. And what I'm saying is nothing like this. Whether this wiretapping happened or not, we first of all have no evidence that any information was shared between Obama and the Clinton campaign. And second of
But that's not the
and second
accusation here. But that is
and,
not the accusation
and
here at all.
second of all, we have no
But
evidence that
Adam, no, no,
we
no,
have no,
Adam.
but
We're not
Dave,
talking about the Clinton campaign at all. We're talking
but
about
Dave,
the Obama administration, the Trump administration. We're
but
not
Dave,
in the Trump campaign. I'm not talking about
but,
the Clintons.
but Dave, this whole what Trump's claims about this wiretapping insinuate is that Obama colluded to take him down. But what they were doing was
No,
investigate.
but it's not colluding to take him down because none of this was brought up until after he was in office.
Okay, and I agree that if Donald Trump was illegally wiretapped or even legally wiretapped, there is a sort of scandal here. But at the same time, I'm also looking at this and saying Donald Trump was not a normal presidential candidate. He had ties to Russia, which are
But Hillary
documented,
Clinton wasn't a normal candidate either.
and she got exposed.
Obviously not. I mean, don't you? I would want an investigation, and I would want wiretapping on somebody that takes favors from foreign nations. You
But
think
that's what.
you think Obama administration had the same exact urgency with the Clinton camps and their conflict of interest as there is with the Trump conflict of interest supposedly?
The,
I don't
the,
think
the
so.
Clinton Foundation was investigated. WikiLeaks exposed the entire thing, but no one exposed anything on Trump's ties to Russia.
But okay, so then they did it, but then there was nothing found.
Okay,
No
and then
evidence is found of what they
so
were accusing him
so
of.
is it still going? No evidence was found.
Okay, but then tell me this: if this is happening in October, why? in January, right before Obama exits office, he expands the power of the NSA to share globally intercepted personnel communications with the government's 16 other intelligence agencies before applying privacy protections. The new powers here reduce protections and can make it easier for intelligence on private citizens to be circulated improperly or leaked. Why does he do that right before he exits office if it has nothing to do with the Trump administration?
Because it probably does have something to do with the Trump administration.
Okay, so
But that's not. But that it's not like he. All right. Let me phrase it to you this way. He during the campaign, Obama, although there were
Obama was very silent during the campaign. Let's keep that in
yes,
mind.
although there were indications that Russia was trying to influence the campaign, he was silent till after when he implemented the sanctions in December. Now, not that I agree with the fact that he implemented this, as you said, this NSA sharing intelligence with other agencies, because I think that again that creates more of a sort of authoritarian state, and not that I agree with that,
A
but
police state, in a
but you
matter of
but you
fact.
can't say all right, same thing. You can't say that there's not a reason why, considering Donald Trump you during the campaign, sometimes you didn't know if he was running for president of Russia or president of the U.S.
That's not true.
That's
We're
not true. Yeah. All
the
right. Well,
president of Russia. Where do you get that from?
all right. That's slight. All right. That's obviously hyperbole, but he's like Russia's great. Vladimir Putin's great, and we're doing a terrible job
That's
here.
not what he said all the time. That's not the narrative. He said that Russia isn't. He said we're not much better than Russia is, and saying that Russia is a
That's
bad
what,
country and we
he,
have some.
that's what he said recently. But during the campaign, he's like Vladimir Putin's a great man. I admire him. He's been running his country great. He said that, and he
Okay.
said our country's been running to the ground. Now that I know that was his strategy to run for office, but you can't deny that he made better remarks about Russia during the campaign than he did about the state of America under Obama.
Yeah, that was his whole narrative. His whole narrative is make
Okay?
America great again. That America isn't great
Okay?
because for half the country it wasn't. But this still doesn't answer my question of okay, there was spying,
Because
and then there
because
was an expansion of the NSA, and then on the eve of inauguration day, the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA and the Treasury Department are monitoring several associates of the Trump campaign suspected of Russian ties. Other news outlets also were reporting the existence of a multi-agency working group to coordinate investigations across the government, though it is unclear how they found out since the investigations would have been secret and involved in classified information.
okay.
So tell me that after the Obama administration, because people say Obama has nothing to do with it. He's the head of the executive branch, and this was in the newspapers. Of course, he knew about it. So
Well,
after
what
doing
he
two
he
FISA
was also
requests and then
instigated by his just
expanding the strength of the NSA, and then supposedly not knowing anything about these Russian ties, and then expanding and then using the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA and the Treasury Department to monitor several associates of Trump campaign and saying you don't know anything about it, and then doing that right before you leave office, you don't think Obama has any correlation to maybe spying on the Trump
not what I'm
administration?
saying. I'm saying there's a justified reason for having doubts in Donald Trump's
Okay,
allegation of
but the
ties to
doubts that you
Russia.
found at first, they found out that there's no evidence found to what they were trying to find with the banks, with the first FISA request.
Okay.
So why
That's
didn't they
that's the
request things
second
to find
that's
more? And that was super specific too.
because you all right, evidence of Russia colluding with Donald Trump, not colluding, sorry, of Russia trying to influence the election in favor of Donald Trump is indisputed. He was briefed on it at an intelligence meeting, and he changed his tune after that. All the intelligence agencies agree that Russia tried to tilt the election in favor of Donald Trump. Then, after they tried to, I think, and the legitimate and the I'm not legitimate. They try to find ties to see if there was collusion.
Okay, so with the evidence given that, and you would say you'd agree that Obama had some spying involved in the Trump administration, you would agree with that, and you think that it was
We don't
wrong.
even know it. All right, first
Do
of
you
all,
what?
FISA requests were in. I'm not trying to defend Obama, but FISA requests are initiated by the Justice Department, independent of the presidency. He could have influenced it yet, yes, but we don't
But
know enough
okay, but he
from
also
these heat.
expanded the NSA right before he
We
left.
don't
That was
know
him.
enough. We don't know enough from these Heat Street reports, which, by the way, is an extremely conservative publication, the National Review, which is conservative. we don't know, and this guy Levin, who is also a conservative, we don't know enough to say that Obama
But my okay,
deliberately tried to spy on Donald Trump. And
but
for him to
my
say that is
my
disingenuous.
sources of the NSA sharing and the FBI and the
But
CIA and
that's
the
not
NSA and the
even
Treasury
directly.
Department's involvement is coming from the New York Times.
But that's not even directly related to this wiretapping.
It is because when you what's the point of doing that if you're about to leave office
To
and then
share
you
intelligence of, I don't know, maybe they shared intelligence of other Russia ties that had nothing to do with the wiretapping.
okay, yeah, because that's been the narrative in the media this whole time. This all it's obvious to me.
If they found nothing on the wiretap, as
Okay.
you say, then why would they need to share any information about nothing?
That's a good question. Why didn't the discussion end right there? Why did it keep going until even right now?
Because they shared information that was not found on the wiretap.
Because the Obama administration knew
Because the
more than just
wiretap
the
because
wiretapping,
the
and they've probably been
wiretap
spying for a longer time than we think.
because you're being blinded by the wiretap. The wiretap is such a minuscule part of this whole thing. Maybe there's, or they probably were spying in other ways and gathering intelligence in
Yes,
other
I'm
ways.
not just talking about
But
wiretapping.
besides,
I'm
that's
saying
what you're
that
talking
there's
about.
spying. To one extent or another, there was spying.
At the very least, they're gathering intelligence about the influence of a foreign power on our election and the possible, and I'm not saying it happened, but possible contact with our president elect at the time. Everyone's forgetting that if Russia had not hacked the DNC, had not released all the WikiLeaks, had not come out in favor of Donald Trump, then we wouldn't even be having this discussion.
And then, okay, and I watched a video of someone you admire greatly, Kyle Kalinske, who runs the show Secular Talk, and he had a 20-minute video today talking about the Democratic Party's unfavorability rating and what the cause is of it.
Yeah, I watched it too.
Okay, and he's an extremely liberal person,
Okay.
extremely progressive, someone I oppose on every front politically. And he even said the media is overplaying this Russia narrative, and the reason, and they keep on saying Russia, leaks, 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 and then they forget about what is leaked. Now, I agree with him on the fact
That
that I believe there should be transparency on both sides of the spectrum, but we're denying what was leaked. And I brought this up last episode, and you're doing it too. You're playing into it in the
I'm
fact that
not
you
denying
keep
what is
bringing up
leaked.
the
I
leaks, you
said that
keep
there
bringing
should
up
be.
the leaks, but then and Russia's ties to the leaks, but you're not talking about what's being leaked.
Did I ever say that? I literally was the first one on this show to say that there should be complete transparency.
Okay,
I said
that's
that there should be an investigation of both. But at the same time, we are forgetting, and I agree that the DNC, the WikiLeaks emails, should have been public knowledge. But at the same time, we are forgetting that Russia released this or hacked us with malice intent. We are
yes, I
forgetting,
okay, but I
and
don't think it's because of Trump's ties. I think if you look at it,
and you
let's
don't
look at
think.
it
But
from
how do you
Putin's
know?
perspective, right? There's two leaders. You have a war hawk in Hillary Clinton, and you have the party that's suddenly anti-Russia all of a sudden.
They're
And then
not
you have Donald
anti-Russia.
Trump, who
Well,
seems
I
like
guess
he's a man. I don't, and even Kyle Kalinske said this. He's not a man that can be bought. This whole thing of the prostitutes pissing on him, or him pissing on
yeah, I
prostitutes
said that
and
was
holding
bullshit.
that to him. Wait, let me finish my point. And holding that to him, and him being a little scared puppy and submitting to him is BS. But he can be manipulated. You see that with what Steve Bannon is doing with him. So who
Okay,
are you as who's a world leader who wants to expand their country going to favor? A man who seems like he can be easily manipulated, or a political puppet who's been there for 30 years?
Dave, listen to yourself.
I'm listening to myself. So I'm
You
saying,
literally
but
just
I
said,
don't, but that doesn't mean that
said.
Trump had direct involvement with it.
But what I'm saying is, we don't know that because his
It
campaign
doesn't
advisor
seem
was
like
paid
it.
12. His campaign advisor, Paul Manafort, was paid 12 million by the Russian government. Rex Tillerson has got a medal of friendship from the Russian government. You have, again, this Jeff Sessions thing. Did he have contacts with Russia? We don't know. But there's why is there why does it seem like so many of these guys have connections with the Russian government, and then you're willing just to overlook it and say, yeah, because Putin wanted Trump to win because Trump is
Yeah, that's what I
not
think
a
happened. And
Trump is not a war hawk like Hillary Clinton, and it's fine. It's fine. He was allowed. It's fine if he influenced the election because he wanted him to win. You're overlooking the fact that the election, in fact, was
do I think
influenced.
Russia should be punished? Yes, but Yeah, I believe that they influenced the
You sounded
election and
like
who
an
they chose.
advocate for
But wait
Russia.
a second, that doesn't mean that Trump and Putin are butt buddies, like the media is trying to say, and that Trump had direct involvement in that. This is a terrible thing. I don't think that's the case. I think there's a line that has to be drawn.
Yeah, but all right, fine. The line being drawn is let's do it. Let's do an investigation of both, but let's not make these 6 a.m. Twitter claims that throw the country into an uproar using.
It's making the media do its job, and I'm perfectly okay with that. And you know what? It's funny because he made the claim that that CNN and MSNBC and all of them did not report enough terrorist attacks. And out of response, do you know what they did? They went through their database and they went through every article they had on terrorist attacks, and they had a
Okay,
decent amount.
they
And
did
it's
that right. They did
amazing that the
this.
power that Donald Trump has on the media,
That
where the
literally
media
and
now is trying to make themselves look transparent. And I don't know if you
what
realize that or not, but I think that's a beautiful thing that's happening.
what that showed though is that Trump lied because they did report on all the terrorist attacks.
No, not all, but
Not
Trump
all,
said they
fine.
didn't do enough.
They reported on all the noteworthy terrorist attacks.
They absolutely did, but Trump said that they weren't reporting enough, and then they came out and brought it out to them. And what president has made the media do that before?
But like that's not even for the media. All right, this is off the issue, but for the media to retroactively go back into their records and show what
Yeah,
terrorist
what political
attacks.
leader has made the media
Listen
has
to me,
yeah.
Dave. To show what terrorist attacks they've already reported on. That's beyond the point of any terrorist attack that might be reported on in the future. That's totally irrelevant to
I'm
how.
just saying that this is what this man is doing to the media, and this is how he's changing the culture of the media. That's I'm not talking about terrorist attacks specifically. That's just an example of when Trump says something
No,
and
no,
how
no,
the
no,
media
no.
is trying to
When
prove
Trump
themselves
tweet,
and try to be transparent.
no, this is almost what happens. It's almost like a game of follow the leader, or more of like a game of tag. I don't. Trump tweets something almost unsubstantiated by evidence, slight evidence, but from all conservative outlets. Then the media scrambles to find if it's true or not.
Uh-huh.
It's that's holding the media accountable. That's trying to hold the president accountable.
And it goes both ways.
How does
Trump
that
is
go?
holding the media accountable when he makes a comment like the terrorism, and then the media responds and scrambles and tries to find everything. And now when Trump makes a comment, the media is trying to find the truth in that. I mean, listen, he made a comment and it's not a full out lie.
Why
When
and
he
why and
says
why can't the White House provide?
just found out that the Obama had my wires tapped, he's not lying.
He is being disingenuous because it was the Justice Department, not Obama, and calling him a bad and sick man.
Okay, whose Justice Department was it? And then whose
Okay,
NSA was, and under whose administration was the NSA expanded after there was no evidence? So saying it was not Obama is a lie in my opinion because it
saying
was
it's
in
not
the
true.
papers and Obama knew of it. To
How
say
low
that
has
he had no
I'm
clue
reading
and he was
I'm reading
clueless,
his
that's a lie.
I'm reading his tweet right now. How low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during the very sacred election process? This is
Yeah.
Nixon/Watergate, bad or sick guy. So he's pinning it directly on Obama. Now I agree. If this is true fully and it's illegal, this is Nixon Watergate level. It's a big deal. But to pin it directly on the president, it's almost like he's gonna institute, like, I don't know. You sound like you're gonna try to institute a purge of his previous political enemies. Like, come on now.
And I think when he says Obama, it's more than just him when he's saying that. This is just against the Democratic Party as a whole.
Oh, so
Obama was the face of this party for eight
you're the
years.
you're the Trump interpreter now. All right, I get it. I get it.
I'm not being a Trump interpreter. I mean, what do you think? You think this man is just going to personally attack Obama? That's the whole point of this? It's more than that.
You said before that the media is trying to take him at his word. I mean, is trying not to take him at his word to try to go and research deeper into him. And now suddenly,
Okay,
and
well, he's not lying when he says Obama. Once again, I mean, how is this? If someone is actually going out of their way to keep looking into things and expanding the NSA after finding no evidence of ties to their FISA request, and then keep going at it, that does say something about Obama and the Obama administration, does it not?
I agree with you. And
Okay.
I also think it says something about the Trump administration, well, not the Trump administration, the Trump
You're
campaign,
at, it shows how victimized
because
they are and how
because
much against they were against
maybe
everybody else. Exactly what it
because
shows.
maybe the judge wouldn't have allowed the request if there wasn't some grounds for having contacts with Russia.
And okay, and they found it, and then there was no evidence to what they were looking for. Yet the NSA was still
That's what
extremely
we know so far from the Heat Street.
that there was no evidence.
Like the great institution, the Heat
Okay,
Street.
well, if there was evidence, then why didn't we hear about this in the news that, oh, Trump had direct ties to a bank if the FISA thing came out that he was guilty?
Because maybe it hasn't been leaked from the inside of the government yet, Dave.
Okay, that definitely, I think that definitely would have been leaked by now. Anything that goes against Trump is they try to leak by now, and that happened then. That happened in October.
Because yeah, all right, whatever. Because we're going nowhere on this conversation.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. Let them do the private investigation. Here's what I hope happens. They're going to do the private investigation on Trump. They're going to find out that this was a whole waste of time and there was very little Trump had very little to do with this in the first place. And it's going to backfire in the media. And
Let
how
me
much
ask you this
terrible
though.
are they going to look?
Let me
And
ask you
then
this.
they're going to
Who
investigate this and find even if they find out that this FISA thing did happen and the expansion of the NSA did happen. That's an actual fact. It's just a matter of how much Obama actually had to do with it.
Dave, let me ask you something.
What?
Who is going to do this investigation on Trump and find nothing? Because if it's
It's a private investigation, I thought.
okay, because
Okay.
right, and if it is a private investigation, then for you to assume they're going to find nothing and then suddenly find Obama's in the dirt is pretty politically motivated in your head, don't you think?
Well, I'm
Donald Trump,
I'm going
Donald
to take
Trump
Trump
is gonna,
over the media any day of the week. Absolutely.
it's not Trump over the
It
media.
is.
It's you just
Because
claim
who's writing the narrative that
you literally
Obama's butt buddies with Putin?
you're literally just
Who else
claiming
but the media?
you're just claiming that Trump has no ties to Russia. That's what you just said.
I am claiming that Trump never contacted the Russian government to help influence the election for
That's
his
not
side.
what you just said. You just said they're going to do this investigation.
Yeah.
This investigation indicating any ties between Russia influencing our election, investigation on that, and then a separate part of that investigation, did Russia and Trump talk to each other?
That's what this investigation is about. Trump's involvement in
And it's about Russia, the extent of Russia's involvement in our election.
Yeah. And why do they
Irregardless,
want to do this investigation? Tell me why the liberals
irregardless
want
of
to do this investigation to find
because
out how much of an extent Trump was involved. If Trump isn't involved, they would never make this a big problem. They want him out of office.
all right, first of all, that
Why
may be
else are they doing it, Adam?
I
Tell
don't
me.
look. I don't think Donald Trump should be impeached. But here's why they're doing it: because Russia, a foreign power, another government who demonizes the U.S. in their own media,
Okay.
and the leaders demonize the U.S., has been proven to have tried to influence our election. That is
Okay.
why they're doing. That is why Republican and Democratic congressmen alike have called for an investigation.
That is why but I'm talking about the liberal media. Why do they
What do
make
you
it so
mean?
much bigger than it is?
What do you mean? You're trying to separate the liberal media from the Republicans and the Democrats.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Why are you trying to do that? Because they're calling for the same thing. You're
Because
just
they're
trying
not the
to
ones saying that
you're
that
de-
Putin
you're
and
demonizing
Russia are butt
the
buddies, and they're not
pain
the ones that
and
make
assassination.
SNL skits of Putin coming into the Oval Office talking to Trump, and they're not the ones portraying Trump with a Russian flag pin on his suit. They're not the ones doing that. That is the left. That is the leftist media and the leftist culture. The congressmen that are doing that are doing it for the much more for the sake of the country. Republicans aren't just going to do it because they
Yeah,
want
for the
Trump
sake of the
out.
country. You all right, today you in school, and this is for all our listeners, Dave, you asked me, do I think dark humor is okay?
Yeah.
So you are lampooning Saturday Night Live for taking which by the way is not a news organization. It's I guess an entity that people go to laugh, even if it may not be completely true. You're lampooning them for trying to have a stretch in portraying Trump as Putin's butt buddy. Okay, you're taking their word as fact. Donald
I'm
Trump's
not taking the word as fact. I'm
Donald
saying
Trump
that's the narrative of the left.
that, that SNL does not represent the left. SNL is a comedy enterprise. When you have Republican and
Just the
Democratic,
okay, that's a specific example. Even the general tone of
if you
MSNBC and
if you have
CNN and how
if you have
they're stating it almost as fact that Russia and Putin and Trump are all tied together in a very closely knit way. If you deny that's the narrative on an MSNBC show,
prove it to
then
me,
there's
Dave.
an issue.
Prove it to me.
All right, let me look for some stuff then.
Prove to me that the total
What?
narrative on
The total.
Is that Trump and Russia have been in cahoots from the beginning, because that's what you're saying. And you said before that the liberal media is blowing this out of proportion when, in fact, Democratic and Republican senators and congressmen are both calling for an investigation, because a fair and independent investigation, just like I'm calling for, just like I think there should be a fair and
All right, here's
independent
an
investigation
MSNBC
of this
article.
wiretap.
Here's an
You're saying
MSNBC article.
you're saying it's politically
The
motivated.
bond between Putin and Trump grows stronger.
And what does it
That
say?
is the title of the article, okay? The bond between Putin and Trump grows stronger. And you know what? There's no evidence that Donald Trump and Putin have a relationship, a political relationship. And the last time we know that they had a word, that they talked, was in 2013. And this is the title of the article. The bond between Putin and Trump grows stronger. And because there's so much evidence that there's a bond between the two. Ridiculous. What does that say?
Here's what their article is about. Because did you read it? I'm looking at the article too. This is when Obama put the sanctions on Russia for influencing the election, and Putin said, "I'm not going to respond," and Trump said, "So true," quote. He tweeted on Putin's comments.
Okay. But what does
That
that say about them having a relationship? I don't understand.
it doesn't. It says the bond because he's backing Putin's comments. That's the bond. That's what he's saying. Could obviously is a little bit.
But isn't it the narrative, like the tone of that, is just saying something more than it really is? Am I wrong when I think that?
You're not wrong when you think that, but you're also wrong in saying that they're saying they're having a collusion relationship right there. Because in reality, when Trump takes one of Putin's statements and says, quote, "so true," are you wrong to think that maybe there's some sort of bond between them?
But what was the comment
Am
that
I wrong? Am
Obama
I
made
wrong?
again?
Am I wrong for thinking that?
What was the comment again? What was it referring to? I'm sorry. The What was Putin's tweet about Obama? What did Obama say or do?
Obama. I think this was all right. This is what Putin said. He said, "It's not important who did the hacking. It's important that the information that was revealed was true. That is important."
Mm-hmm. Okay, I agree with that.
Trump says, and then I believe that he's talking about the Putin not liking. I mean, not Putin. The how Obama put the sanctions on the Russians for
Even
influence.
Kyle Klinsky, a liberal, is against those sanctions.
Okay, is he?
So
I'm
it's not just something from the
yeah,
right
but to
side of the
say that
spectrum to
yeah,
be against sanctions on something where there's not enough evidence for it,
but
or not the punishment doesn't fit
all
the
the
crime.
intelligence agencies agree on that, but you're arguing the moot point because we've argued this in every single one of our shows. What we, you're every time I bring up you bring up an argument, I make a point, and then you go on to claim that Kyle Klinsky says this or someone else says that, and these sanctions shouldn't even be happening. But stay on your point that the liberal media is portraying this relationship between
Yes, the
Putin and Trump,
liberal media
but at
absolutely
the
is
same
portraying
time,
that.
which
I'm
is
not.
true, but at the same time,
I'm
you have
referring to Kyle. That's
Republicans.
not liberal media, Kyle Kalinske.
But at
That's
the same
independent
time,
media.
but at the
That's
same
someone who's not
time,
affected by
but at the
narrative.
same time, you have Republicans who are also questioning the same relationship. Republicans that you would probably agree with questioning the same relationship. That they're also independent of any liberal media. Why are they questioning it?
Because I do agree that there should be an investigation. I agree with John McCain and I agree with Lindsey Graham that there
So then what
should
are
be
we
an
arguing about?
investigation.
So then what are we arguing about?
The narrative. I'm arguing against the narrative that they make it so much bigger than it actually is, or that we know of it to be. When you say that the bond between Trump and Putin grows stronger, you're assuming something that isn't necessarily true. The
The,
title could have been anything else but that, based on the information. But that's
the
what the
bond
liberal
is
media
referring. The
chooses to
bond
be,
is
and that's
referring.
my point. That
The bond is all right.
there's a
You know
picture
what?
being
Fine.
painted.
I don't even want to defend the liberal media because I don't even agree with it. But the bond that you're talking about is in reference to
To
some
two tweets. To
it's in
two tweets. Yeah.
is
What
that
is
not
that bond?
that's Trump praising Vladimir Putin.
Based on
I don't
two
I don't
tweets, you
even
say there's a bond.
I don't even I don't even I don't even want to defend the liberal media. But that I would say that's a bond.
All right, you can say it's a bond, but when you phrase it like that, it makes it seem like much more than two tweets.
Okay, Dave.
Okay, so I have a bond with Cenk Uygur, or I have a bond with some random person on Twitter because I tweeted at them, or say I have a random bond with. All right, for
No,
example, a
no.
rapper I like followed me back on Twitter, so I have a bond with him.
Yes, yes, you do.
Exactly, but you have to define the bond. I've never spoken to the guy in my life. But
Okay, you
because
have
he
fun
followed
with.
me on Twitter and I followed him back, there's a bond that you're going to make an article about, assuming I have a relationship with that person. It's the same thing.
All right,
The
let me ask you
same
this.
thing.
Let me ask you this, Dave. You you didn't have a. Let's just say you liked this rapper before, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't know about you.
Okay.
So you had a bond with him. You and his music have a bond,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Okay.
Then when you follow him and he follows you back, that bond grew stronger, did it not?
But have I ever spoken to the man in my life?
Hey, did the bond grow stronger, Dave? I'm asking you that question.
No, because there's no
How did it
bond.
grow stronger?
That's not a bond.
He acknowledged you, and you acknowledged him.
With the
You're
click of a
telling me
button. But does that mean I have a relationship with him?
I never said that.
Exactly. But
You
what
were
is
you
what is the
Dave,
intent? Tell me, Adam.
you
What
brought
is
up
the
this
intent with an
you
article that says the bond
you brought
between
up this
Trump and
article.
Putin is
You
growing
brought up this
stronger?
article saying the bond grows stronger.
Yeah, what is the intent of that article? What are
You
you
brought up the
trying to
example
make?
of your rapper friend. And yet because he followed you, the bond did grow stronger. That's all this
But
article is
what is
saying.
MSNBC trying to say when the bond is growing stronger? They're not
They're
making
trying to
this philosophical argument you and I are making. They're trying to make it look
how
like
do you
Trump and Putin have a relationship.
okay.
Okay, that's my point. So don't say that. My point
Well,
is trying to say that
and you're
they're making this
and you're saying that
bond.
Trump did not give them any grounds for making such a claim.
It's a tweet and a tweet back.
Tweeting, praising the Russian president throughout the whole campaign. Tweeting in 2013, I wonder if he could be my best friend? Question mark.
And okay, and that's the basis for this whole narrative being drawn.
And the fact that Russia hacked the Democratic National Convention, which by the way should have been hacked, but they also tried using other active methods to get Donald Trump elected. We don't know if they're connected, but we do know that's true.
So we're using a tweet from 2013
We're
as
using,
evidence.
we're using the conclusion of all the national intelligence agencies, a briefing that
All the
a
national
a
intelligence
high
agencies
hey
show
listen up
that Russia
a high
influenced the
security
election. Yes.
high security briefing that Donald Trump, after he heard it, stopped tweeting, stopped making the claim that it could have been a 400-pound hacker. Once he
I'm
heard the
not
briefing,
arguing that Russia isn't involved. That's not my argument.
then what are you're arguing that they made this? They tried
My
to.
argument is to the extent Trump and Russia had a relationship in this process, that liberals are trying to say with all their heart that Trump and Russia are really in this together and that they were in this the whole time.
All we're calling, or I should say, all I'm calling for is an investigation. You are going through this in with looking for a confirmation bias to try to find ways that the liberal media is portraying the bond between Putin and Trump, which blocks your view of the facts that they did have, or I should say, that Russia did have some sort of election, have some impact on the election.
All right, let me clarify this again. Russia had an influence in the election. I agree. Should there be a private investigation done? I agree. Why are the liberals picking this issue over other issues and are really pushing for this is because they want to find a reason to get Trump out of the office. That's what I firmly believe in, and you don't agree with that, and you don't seem to believe that that's the narrative. And I just think that there's more things that they can choose from talking about instead of pushing this and pushing this and pushing this. Shut up, wait for the investigation to happen, and then keep talking. That's it. That's my view.
Look, I agree that I don't. The reason I think that they should investigate this is not because it should get him impeached, but to say that stop talking about this. It wasn't like he was going crazy. I mean, it wasn't like Donald Trump tweeting about this and talking about this whole FISA thing didn't even make it blow up more. So you're telling liberals to stop talking about it, when in effect Donald Trump only furthered the conversation.
Yeah,
That's
but
all I have to say.
he didn't
And I
start
do
it.
have to
He's never
say,
started the conversation.
I'm not saying he started the conversation, but I'm not saying he didn't try to shut it down. He actually
Because he can't shut it down.
emboldened the conversation.
He can't shut it down at this point.
He can shut it down by stop talking. Well, not shut it down, but he can lessen the conversation by being transparent
No,
about
that
his
gives
ties with
power to
Russia.
the media.
If he's transparent about his ties with Russia from the beginning,
How can he be transparent about it when he makes the claim that he has no ties? What is there to be transparent about?
release his tax returns. We'll see if he
That has
donated
nothing to do with
to Russia.
Russia.
How do you know about that? Why doesn't he
Because
release
we
them?
just did a FISA investigation of Trump and a Russian bank, and there was no ties.
No ties between a
We're,
Trump,
the claim is that the election was
No, the tie.
rigged. What do
It's a
tax returns have to do with a rigged election?
it's a Trump hotel and a Russian bank. By the way,
What
that's
do
what
tax returns have to do with a rigged election? Nothing.
because we don't know where he's getting his money from. We don't know where his money's going. We don't know his statement of cash flows. Shout out Schlam, but still,
It's so far fetched.
it's really
So
not.
far fetched.
There's a lot of things in this election, before this election season, that we thought were far fetched. Like this whole thing of Bernie being screwed by the DNC, which it turns out were not far fetched. So I think that we have to give everything its due diligence in investigating it. But I think that yelling about the liberal media, when you said they're just trying to do their job now because they're being held accountable by Donald Trump, as you say, is not going to help anything at all.
All right, let's continue on because this isn't going to go anywhere. Um, the new Donald Trump executive order on refugees and immigration. So basically, what I know of as the general updates to it is it's a much more the language is much more specific. Iraq is taken off as one of the countries. It's only 6 now. The number of refugees the U.S. will let in is being going to be cut in half to 55,000. Those who have a visa card or a green card are off the hook now and will not be deported. All refugee programs, not just the Syrian ones, will be frozen for 120 days from those 6 countries.
I thought it was 90 days, but either way, that's a moot
No,
point.
90 days from banning anybody from entering. Refugee programs will be frozen for
Okay.
120.
So you're asking me what do I think?
Sure. What do you think? I didn't. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I think that
Compared to the last one, what do you think at least?
all right, it's clear, but obviously it's still going to be facing the same exact challenges it faced before in court. I don't understand. He's like, this is going to be a new and totally revamped thing. They took Iraq off because Iraq cooperated with our immigration authorities in the vetting process. So now they're suddenly fine. They um, have this 10-day buffer period before it's implemented, so there's no chaos as before. They exempt green card holders, so there's no chaos from before. I think one of the biggest things for me is there's no religious test, and it doesn't specifically bar Syrian refugees, which I think was one of the more abhorrent things of the last order. And I will say, I know some liberals don't like this, but I think one of the good things about this order is that it does call on our nation to report honor killings all through this country, and I think that's an definitely an underreported issue, and not usually in Muslims who've lived here a while, but for immigrant communities who still have some of the culture from their old, not from their old, from their the countries they used to live in. I think that to report honor killings is definitely something that would make sense, so that we know the extent to which this is happening in America. I still, I think honestly, this is Donald Trump's saving face, in that his last order was shot down, and he's like, maybe I can. I definitely can't back down completely, but I need to submit another order. I still don't think that it's going to change anything. And honestly, I think it's a little bit, although I do like the fact that they took Iraq off for buffering, because that now will let some refugees in from Iraq. This doesn't jibe with Trump's claims that, we're going to be making America safer, we're going to be stopping ISIS from coming into our country, when in reality ISIS is in Iraq and Syria, and now Iraqis will be let into our country. That doesn't exactly make sense, but I mean, based on Donald Trump's claims. But I want to know what you think of it.
Um, I made the claim earlier that I don't think that this executive order does anything for counterterrorism in this country.
I agree.
I just don't see the point when the vetting process is already strict. But my ideas have changed a little bit because I debated my dad on this issue, and you know how I brought up earlier how in a country like Germany where you let in 1 million refugees, you see the cultural shift, the hesitation to conform to German laws, the increase in crime from and the increase of crime happen to be the top five ethnicities or countries where the criminals are from are those countries that are being banned. Now, I don't see an issue with letting in 55,000 a year, but I am a little bit fearful as an American that if something isn't done to get these refugees back in Syria, that year after year you allow more and more people in, and there's the threat that this country will begin to look like Germany or begin to look like Britain, and then we're just going to have our own version of this stronger sense of nationalism come in, which liberals are highly against, like the Brexit movement, and then it can be even worse than it should be. So I'm okay with this because it doesn't make US a safe haven for these people, and it still forces us to try to fix the problem in Syria and in the Middle East and try to get these people back in their homes. And we're not fully submitting to this and making us a place where millions can flock in. So I'm kind of struck in the in between. I don't think that this fights terrorism, but for the sake of our country's safety and the culture, I'm not fully opposed to it at the same time, if that makes sense at all. And if you disagree with what I'm saying, go ahead.
Well, here's the interesting thing. I don't 100% disagree with you, but the the amount of immigrants, I mean refugees, who were going to be let into this country before was 110,000. So they cut it in half to 55,000. Still a tiny fraction of our American population. I mean,
It absolutely is, but I'm just after 8 years,
no, I know, but
110,000, 110,000, it gives more leeway to not fix the problem and just take in more people. And 800,000 people is still a lot of, you know, it's
okay.
still a lot of people from that area and it might still, some cities might end up looking like Germany or
Point,
Cologne in Germany. That's all.
point, point duly taken there because I definitely see where you're coming from. At the same time, and I know as I'm sure you agree, this you said this gives Trump or the America some sort of incentive to go into Syria and make something happen so that we can get Syrians back to their country.
Not necessarily the U.S., but it gives the message to Western Europe and the liberal countries that are taking in these immigrants that the U.S. isn't going to do what they're doing. And my hope is that it doesn't make just the U.S. alone try to fight this, but it tries to make the Western world try to solve this problem and actually realize you can take in as many if refugees as you want and make as many refugee camps, but that still doesn't solve the issue of ISIS and just the Syrian revolution and what's going on. And I hope that it reverts the focus back there.
No, but those 55,000 refugees who are now not being let into America may well be 55,000 refugees killed by the Syrian government in a barrel bombing attack or by ISIS as they're fleeing a town. I just always want to keep that in mind because of course you don't want crime to increase in America. I definitely don't, and I'm not denying that there was a documented increase in crime in Germany, but at the same time, to look at it from a humanitarian's point of view, that these are people fleeing a terrible conflict which they're caught in a vice grip in the middle of. It's not just like they're coming to deliberately
Yeah,
hurt.
no, I and that's where I'm stuck in the middle, and it makes me uncomfortable because I do want these people to be helped, but I think in the long run, these people still aren't living the lives that I think that they want to live. And I obviously most refugees want to be in their home where they feel comfortable and live the life they used to live. So I'd hope from a humanitarian perspective, it forces us to look Assad in the eyes and the leaders of ISIS in the eyes and say, listen, if it takes these people are evil on both sides of the spectrum. They're causing tremendous harm to these people and are causing chaos. And maybe we should try to eliminate it. And it's just the way it is in history through force and through strength to bring peace back. Because I think laying off of it doesn't solve the issue.
Well, no one ever. I mean, the thing is, the refugee, like the amount of refugees you let into a country, and how you deal with a country in war are not necessarily connected. You can let in a lot of refugees from a conflict and still go hard at that country. I don't
I
understand.
know, but that's what we haven't been doing.
But I don't understand how letting in 110,000 versus letting in 55,000 will
I
change.
don't know how
Will
much
change
of a
our
difference that really
will
makes.
change our message in how we fight Syria. The message is totally independent of how many refugees we
But
let in.
versus the Western Europe, there's a humongous difference between the U.S. and those countries. Only letting 55,000 is unheard of there.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
do agree. I think that we should be letting in more, but
so
I mean,
I would say and this is what I talked about with my dad. I said I think it's okay to let in 110,000 a year if we have a long-term goal in mind to get these people back in their country.
absolutely, and like
And
we
I
are.
don't think, and I believe right now the case is Germany, Britain, France, they're not looking at ISIS, and they're just taking in people, but I don't think they're looking in the long run and trying to defeat the core issue. They're just trying to come up with more refugee camps and more safe spaces. And I think that this is the problem with this globalist leftist foreign policy view. And I think that dropping a bunch of drones endlessly doesn't solve the issue.
So you're saying that we should put boots on the ground?
I believe that we should put boots on the ground in Syria, 100%.
That's a totally different issue. But what I will agree with you, and I do want to point out, is before this whole civil war broke out, it wasn't like Syria was, I don't know, on the scale of Afghanistan or even Iraq during the Iraqi war in terms of not having, infrastructure in place. Syria was a relatively developed country,
It was, yeah.
and it's now been basically blown to pieces. And so, what a lot of people think these refugees are some sort of like almost they view them as a different species, as wild animals almost, who are coming in with these totally different values. And while some of them maybe Syria was sort of westernized before this whole this whole civil war took place. So a lot of these refugees are coming in with either with university experience or experience as plumbers or electricians or stuff of the like. It's not like they just worked in a bazaar or something
No,
and
I see your
became
point, but I still think it's a much more complicated issue to get these people to have jobs and have the jobs and professions they used to have when they have nothing anymore, no identification, no
it's
money, nothing. It's still I think it's much more difficult to assimilate these millions of people who used to have lives rather than go back into the issue and
okay. I agree,
try to fix the actual problem at hand.
but
Because if
while we're but while we're going back into the issue, we can't ignore humanitarian duties as the richest country on earth.
No, I agree, but I don't. I would say I agree there needs to be humanitarian help, but I disagree with there just being humanitarian help and no plan to get rid of these people and fix it because those people in Europe have been taking in refugees for almost like 2 years now, and they just drop drones and bombs and don't do anything else, and it obviously hasn't fixed anything.
All right. Okay, everybody. Thank you. I think we've talked for over an hour. We've talked enough.
We're around an hour mark, but yeah. So thank you everyone for listening. I think we should continue this debate on foreign policy in the future on how to handle this situation because it is very complex and I don't think it's talked about enough. So thank you, Third World Airports listeners, for listening. Got a little bit heated this time, and we'll get you another episode this weekend. Peace out.